Okay, so we're back to finish up the head for our character. I think we're actually not too far off. We've still got a few things that we definitely have to do, but I think we've made good progress so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing that all come together. So let's go ahead and wrap up the neck and the general torso segment leading into the clothes. Then we'll iron out the details with the mouth, making sure we've got our eyes in place. Maybe we do a little bit of like an eyelash or anything like that. And then we can finalize the hair, which in this case we're going to make as kind of like a single hair piece rather than being almost kind of like a fully modeled piece, rather than going with more like specific hair planes or something like that, since we're going for a lower poly design. So okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this. So before we go in, we end up merging the two sides together. I want to make sure that we actually have the general completion of the neck and torso segment. So let's go ahead, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of these edges from behind the neck, and we're going to use those to make some of the contour shape around the coming around under the chin. And so what we'll do is I'll go ahead and grab these edges from the chin area. I'm going to shift extrude, and we want to make sure that we get these a little bit adjusted. I'm going to slide these back. Okay. So they're going to, this is going to be gradually kind of part of the overall structure under the chin. We just want to make sure that it's softened a bit. And I'm probably going to have to lift that up as well. Now we got to be a little bit careful selecting verts, because we can see the other side now, and I think that's probably okay. Not too bad. And then we know that vert is going to merge into this vert, so we'll go to the target weld, select that, weld it, and I'm just gradually shifting these positions here, nudging those a little bit. And then basically we're going to do the same thing one more time. We'll select these edges here surrounding this part of the character's chin. We can extrude that as well. And I'm going to actually start by just doing the target weld, that vert to that vert. Oh, again, got to make sure that I don't have all the verts selected. Seems to be the thing that I do every time. And basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to wrap this around to where the neck is actually positioned. Let's see. So we're going to have to make a little bit of alteration as we go through that. So at the moment we also have this this section kind of here in the middle where we haven't created the additional edge flow necessary to merge those in either. So we need to watch out for that as well. So I'm gonna quickly say, okay, we got a decent start on this. Just kind of tweak those. I'll go ahead and go to the mesh tools, insert edge loop tool. I know I need to add one there. Oops. I've got to make sure that my cats are knocking over stuff. Actually, so I just make it easier to do. I'm gonna go ahead and add that edge there. Add that edge there. Actually, I don't think I want the insert with edge flow there at this point. So I'm gonna add an edge there. Add an edge there. Add an edge there. And then this way, I can select each of these verts. I can select Edit Mesh, Merge to Center. Do the same thing with this. Edit Mesh, Merge to Center. And I can do the same with this bit here. I can hit the G key, obviously, to redo my last tool selection. So as long as I didn't use any tool between, that will be fine. And then I gotta start thinking about like how I'm actually going to be constructing the neck piece. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to grab this this neck face and then the surrounding edges following down here, and I'm going to extrude them out to the very side of the neck, and then I'm going to move that backwards in the side view until it's roughly 50% of the way back to where the neck is. So, and then I know that also because of that same consideration of where that is on the side, I'm actually going to have to define each of these edges to more closely follow the shape of the chest area as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I need to add at least one more edge loop, just so that I can get the correct shape. And then what I can do is I can merge, or rather, I can bridge this back to the other part of the neck. So I'm going to add an edge loop because I know that roughly it's going to be a similar section. So I'm going to grab this edge and then this edge, go to Edit Mesh, Bridge, and that'll be fine. And then I've got my basic idea of just like at a rudimentary level, like where my neck is. And then I can go and I can start adding in my subdivisions so that I can make the neck more closely fit the shape that it's intended to. And then we can also make sure that we have like clavicle bones and all of those kind of things roughly represented as well, so that it doesn't look inconsistent. Okay. So let's go ahead and quickly just make sure we have the general idea of the shape of the neck with a few more edge loops. And I'm actually probably going to do this with the insert with edge flow, because I can go ahead and then I can click on the middle here. It may or may not do exactly what I want, but it's generally going to allow me to, as long as I'm kind of splitting the difference here, that it's sort of making something roughly similar to the shape that I might expect for this piece. So, and then I can also go ahead and I can add in divisions, for the main part of the neck as well, which actually works out pretty nicely, as long as I'm keeping pretty consistent there. And that's what's nice about insert with edge flow, is it does a lot of the work for you. So so I'm gonna go ahead and let's see, we get that one in there. We're gonna want to make a few edits. It looks like I seem like I have kind of shifted the shape here a little bit too much. Okay. All right. And so then basically what I need to do is I need to go through and make sure I'm bridging the final elements here between each of the parts of the neck. I think in this case that I'm pretty much trying to just get the space that I need to have these edges that I've already created merge into the neck. So let's see. So I can maybe push these a little bit so that there isn't quite as much of a gap here. Now, obviously, we got to be a little bit careful about any edits that we're doing in the 3D view that might be producing an effect in another axis or an orientation that's different from what our current camera alignment is. So I can, if my camera is roughly aligned with the surface, I can use the direct selection and just drag it straight over without too much needed tweaking after the fact, but you just got to be mindful of that. Yep. Okay. So that's looking okay. We're getting there for sure. Oh. These are those kind of things where it sort of seems like it's taking forever, and then all of a sudden you realize you're done. And that's always kind of a cool feeling when you're like, oh shoot, I made a whole thing. That's good. I'm glad I did that. Okay, and so let's really quickly here, because I think that we probably have slightly too many divisions down here below the mouth. So I'm going to, let's see. I think actually in this case I might actually be able to add an edge loop going down this way, because it looks like that we would actually benefit from that edge loop. Okay. And so then I can see for sure that there's a few edges that definitely would be getting bridged, and I can do these kind of like piecemeal to make sure that I have the correct bridge. So I can select to bridge those. Okay, so we got that little bit of a connection there. And because we have a lot of edges here that we may or may not really benefit from, it's a good idea to kind of figure out where we're going to terminate these. And usually it's a good idea to terminate them at the point where there's less deformation, which would be at like right at the base of the chin in this particular case. So let's see. I think what we're going to be looking at here is I'm going to go to target weld. Oh, again, there we go. Again, I'm going to target weld these verts, and I'm going to target weld these verts. Just because I don't think that there's any reasonable justification for bringing these edges further down. I think what I might do though is I might take these verts and subtly shift those over a bit, and then I can make another insert edge loop right in the middle here, and then I can bridge the gap between those two. Then I might do a little bit of average vertices to like kind of smooth out some of this or what have you. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select edge, 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 edit mesh, bridge. Okay, there we go. And then I think it might behoove us in this case to actually add a small additional subdivision here. Again, insert with edge flow, just so that we can get a little more control over that that neck deformation. And then the last bit here will be just to go and start merging these all together. So let's go ahead and extrude this up first, because this is really pretty clear what's going on there. Then it looks like what we're essentially going to be doing here, I'm going to go ahead and target weld this edge. Mesh tools, target weld, sorry, I say edge sometimes when I mean that was vertices, what we're looking at there. Vertex. Mesh tools, insert edge loop tool. Insert those real quick. Actually, that edge seems to actually be doing worse things for my topology, but that's okay. I think we're doing okay. So I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, merge to center, just to make sure those edges or those verts are merged. Select those, hit the G key, and then I'm going to select this edge and this or this vert and this vert. I'm going to merge those, and then I'm just going to let there be one triangle piece here on the corner. It's not perfect, but it works. So I can actually go to Mesh, Fill Hole. Well, actually, I could do that, but it didn't work in this case because we have a little bit too much of a gap still. So I can go to Mesh Tools, Append Polygon. I can select that edge, click on that. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay. I'm just gonna, slightly massage that. So let's get that last bit on the back of the neck sorted out. I think that'll be pretty straightforward for us to do here. Let's quickly shift these. Oops, looks like I got a selection out in space. Let's shift these verts out a little bit so we can start making like a little bit of a smoother shape here. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to add one division here to help bridge. So I'm going to select right in there, and of course because of insert with edge flow is on, that actually worked out pretty well. I can grab these verts, make sure I don't have any outside verts. I can nudge those around a little bit. Select these verts, nudge them around, and then basically, I mean, this is going to be pretty easy, right? We just basically have to bridge this whole section. So let's actually, I mean, this might even be easier if I go to. No, that's probably not a good idea. Okay, so we could try to fill hole in this case, but I don't think that's actually going to quite do what we need. So I'm going to just grab these edges at the bottom, and I'm going to extrude them up to about midway, shift them out, and then extrude out again. And then basically I'm just going to go ahead and target weld these, get them where they need to go. So select vert, make sure I have the correct verts selected. There we go. 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 And there we go. All right, and then we can just nudge these around. And okay, and so then we're looks like overall we're doing okay. So we still have a little bit more that we gotta take care of. But like, so we could go through and we could just try to focus on averaging vertices for these. So I think in this case, because we're not making a super high poly model, I'm actually not going to worry too much about making like clavicle bones or anything like that. So I'm going to focus on, so that we can get through all the details, we can just focus on kind of the main forms. So I think actually in this case that's pretty close to like what I want for this. So let's actually go ahead and we'll combine these pieces together. I'm going to make a few edits. We're going to take a look at some things we can do to kind of shift things and make them a little bit cleaner. And then let's make the mouth bag, put the eyes together, all that kind of stuff. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Edit Mesh, or no, actually, Mesh, Combine. Then I'm going to select all the verts here. And by the way, we don't have the display here, but I'm going to turn on Windows Display, Heads-Up Display, Poly Count, so we can see our verts. So I'm going to select all of the verts. You'll see that it says I have 1064 verts selected. I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, Merge Options. I'm going to merge with a low threshold. So ideally this will only merge verts that are right on top of each other, and that'll include the verts that are right next to each other for the main body. So I'm going to go to Merge, select that. Okay, and so it merged about 62 verts, it looks like. And so we can see we've got the pieces together here. There's a little bit of a sharpness here in the middle. So there's actually some neat tools in the modeling toolkit that we can mess with. So let's take a look real quick and see what some of those might do. So for example, we have the Quad Draw tool here. And the Quad Draw tool is generally designed for doing, basically doing retopology of a high poly model to a low poly model. To a low poly model. Which at some point I actually want to show you guys because that's a really neat workflow. But since we're just doing the low poly model here, we don't have to worry about that. But what's cool is if I select the Quad Draw tool, if I hold down the Shift key, there's actually this option called Relax that shows up. It actually just allows me to go through this and just generally like I can reduce down some of the variance on some of the parts of the model. And I got to be careful that I don't overuse this because this is more designed for working with when you have a high poly model underneath and it sort of relaxes this towards the high poly model. But I can do this to just sort of quickly iron out some spots that seem like they're a little bit uneven or kind of bad discontinuity between the topology, so I can kind of make them like so that they're overall a little bit softer or smoother. Then yeah, we'll be okay here. Okay, and I'm not gonna go too crazy with that. One thing I noticed is like, so I accidentally gave her a cleft chin. I don't want to do that. So we're gonna nudge that vert out a little bit. I might nudge this one up a little bit as well. Oh, got to be a little careful about where that's going. And I think I'm going to do a little bit more. Oh, relax the chin area a tiny bit because this looks like this is one of the areas that's a little bit. And literally, I'm just kind of rubbing this stuff here to kind of like lightly massage it. This is actually a really nice way of approaching this. It's easier than using like average vertices, and it just helps you kind of like generally iron out some of the roughness in the shapes that you've created, so that things like soften up and look a little smoother and nicer. So okay, so I think that's looking good. We're pretty all right there. So let's go ahead and let's start making extra details here. So one of them is we need to have what's called a mouth bag. And this is so that the character can open their mouth and you can see something on the inside of their mouth without it being too drastic. Now, depending on how complex the model is going to be, you could make really elaborate mouth bags that include like a tongue, and you can have teeth. And a lot of times those things are simpler models than like actually fully modeling those details. But it can often be a good idea to have those things included. In this case, we're just basically going to kind of like extrude it back so that we just have like a hole for the mouth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to extrude this, switch to the world extrusion. I'm going to let's see, scale this out a little bit. And then we're going to have to make some manual edits on this. But so I'm going to basically have, like, there's going to be this first extrusion. It's a little hard to see here. So I'm going to actually go to shading X-ray for a second so we can see it. Okay, so we've got that, like, basic shape there. I'm going to do one more extrusion. And that I'm going to just extrude out, and then I'm going to collapse it all into the center. So go to Edit Mesh and select Collapse. Just so we have something there. Again, I'm not trying to make this, like, crazy detailed. So, all right. So if we scale this out more extremely, we can sort of see there's a few edges in this case that were, because there was following the shape of the lips, that this was, like, not really. These are not all extruding out in a uniform way. So I'm just my goal here is just to generally make kind of an opening or like a space. Okay, so, and you know, I mean, we could do a lot more with this. I'm not gonna go too nuts with this because I want to make sure we get through other things. But basically, like, in general, you just have to be aware that, like, characters generally need to have some kind of a mouth bag in order to actually look correct when you finish their details. So I'm gonna grab this actually here and scale it. And I'm gonna scale it all in one axis to try to make it more even. So if you don't do this kind of thing, you're gonna get to the point where you go to animate a character and you actually can't properly animate the character's mouth because you actually can't open the mouth. And this is the bare minimum of what you would need to do so that you can open the mouth and you don't see, like, a hole in the mesh. So we'll just kind of leave that there. And I mean, if you wanted to, you could add more divisions. Like, I could do a couple of additional insert edge loops or something like that, just to make sure that it has a little bit more continuity. Let me, but I'm really not super worried about it. So, okay, I'm going to turn off shading X-ray. Let's go through here real quick. Let's actually grab the whole head. I'm going to go to Mesh Display, select Soften Edge, so that way the head looks like it's roughly the correct dimensions and everything. So I can, it's possible that we may need to make some additional tweaks at the neck level. So I'm going to actually just extrude one more level of neck because I don't want to run the risk of that being visible. So click and shift double click, extrude. I'm going to scale that out until it roughly matches the size of there we go. Then I can select those verts, edit mesh, merge center. Select these verts, edit mesh, merge center, or just the G key. And okay, and then there we go. Okay, so now remember we dealt with the eyes earlier. We didn't do anything too crazy with it. I'm actually not going to worry about eyelashes too much right now. I think we can make a very simple detail for eyelashes that would kind of get the point across without being anything too wild. I'm going to go ahead and actually, let's see. Let's go ahead and turn on our eyes real quick. So I'm going to go to Outliner. Remember, we have the left eye. So if I turn that on, what we want to do is we want to position that eye so that it's inside of the socket and looks pretty reasonable in size and position. We may actually want to tweak a little bit where the verts go, as far as that eye goes. But I think in this case, I'm not too worried about it. I think that this is actually pretty good. And so then what we can do is we can then just, we can duplicate the eye if we wanted to. We could make sure that it was 100% symmetrical. So I could actually hit the insert key really quick, type in 0 on X, hit the insert key again to turn that off. And then that way I can then go ahead and modify duplicate special, and I can automatically duplicate the eye so that I have two different eyes based on the same principle. So then, yeah, there we go. So we got the basic head here. I'm going to go ahead and just, because I want to make this a little bit easier to work with, I'm going to go ahead and combine these pieces. Mesh, combine. Now we could leave those separate if we wanted to, but I'm gradually just basically going to be working towards making the entire piece all together. So let's go ahead and we're going to do a couple extra details. So like let's talk about the eyelashes for a second. So there's a few ways that you can do something like this. I usually recommend doing just basically like a plane that you're going to apply a texture to or something of that nature, so that the eyelashes look like they're present without being too crazy. You can kind of decide how you want to do that depending on what your art style is. I think potentially we could actually do this with maybe like a small cube. So we could, I'm going to go ahead and create a cube really quick, actually. It's kind of hard to see here because we have a detail there. Okay, so I just dragged out a little bit of like a basic cube. I'm going to quickly turn on shading, wireframe on shaded, so I can see where we're going with this. And what I'm going to do is first I'm going to select the verts on this cube. I'm going to grab these two verts here. I'm going to go to edit mesh, merge to center. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And basically what my goal is here is I'm going to extrude out like a really basic shape, and then I'm just going to modify this shape a bit so that it matches what we're expecting for our eyelash. So I'm going to, in this case, it's going to be like a little bit extending out from, and I'm probably going to make sure that it's roughly matching the edges that we have. So I'm going to kind of position this in the broad strokes and then probably add some subdivisions to make sure that those are matching. By the way, you have no idea how much I love this whole shift extrude workflow. This is not something that we had in previous versions of Maya, so this is really, really nice. Trying to think, let's see where exactly. So on this character, the eyelashes seem to go to right around to there. I think I'll probably leave it somewhere around there. And then we can go in, add some subdivisions where are necessary. So I can go ahead and add an edge here. Again, thank goodness for insert with edge flow, making things easy. And then I can just I can grab these by double clicking them. I can make little tweaks about where they're positioned or rotated. Obviously this one looks like it has the most dissimilarity with the actual shape of the eye. And then I can also go through and I can make sure that like I actually only have, I could do this where I even had less dimension than I currently have, like so that I don't, maybe I could even just make it like a single plane or something like that. But in general, it just sort of depends on what it is that I'm looking for. And since this character is a little more cartoony or stylized, I think it's okay. So So let's see. Okay. Now the one thing I definitely don't need though is I don't need any of these faces going along the back. So I'll just delete those and then so I can have like a little bit of like an eyelash effect, and if I think that maybe if that's a little bit too extreme, I think that that actually might be a little bit too extreme. I can yeah, I can reduce it down a bit. And of course we can always look at it in the side view, since it looks like actually we need to make some tweaks here. I think I went too far. By the way, if you have a hard time, I realize I'm navigating through here. If you have a hard time navigating through the attribute editor to get to the material, I'm just going to go to rendering, Windows Rendering Editor's Hypershade for a second. And then I can go ahead and I can find the character. I can adjust the transparency up a bit so I can see through it. And as you can see, I went way overboard at the end with the eye here. So I need to make sure that I've got those set up correctly and that it's not extending as far out as it is here. So. Okay. I think for the most part that should be okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit the insert key here. Type in 0 on X. Then I'm going to duplicate that. So I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate Special. There we go. So I've got her eyelashes. I can go ahead and duplicate those and combine them together. Mesh, combine. And then her eyebrows will probably be something that we would do in texture in this case, because this is a lower poly character. So so let's go ahead and start getting her hair kind of set up. And this is going to be something where it's going to be a little bit similar to the things that we've already done, but we're going to need to like make sure that we're being consistent. So let's go ahead and I'm going to actually go to Edit, Delete All by Type History to get rid of some of that stuff. Looks like we don't need that P-plane thing anymore. Looks like we don't need that left eye transform anymore. Looks like we don't need the P-cube1 transform anymore. I'm going to call this head, just so I can keep track of it. And then what we need to do basically is we need to, I'm going to go ahead and actually hide this real quick with Control H. And I want to basically try to make a really quick set of just kind of boundaries for the head and hair so that we can follow the flow. So a good way to do that, I can go ahead and I can make a plane, for example, like this. I'm going to rotate it until it's flat. This is not something we can mirror because it's not symmetrical, so I'm just going to go ahead and type in 0 on X for this. I'm going to select my verts. I'm going to position them a little bit. Go to, insert edge loop. Add that in. And then basically what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to select edge. In this case, I'm just going to hold down Control, deselect the edges I don't want. And I'm just going to quickly like extrude a general boundary of where her hair is. And I know that'll roughly go over to here. And I'm not going to, would count that. I don't think, because I don't think I can use the same edges for that. Well, actually, maybe I can. So extrude, 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 and then basically, so we got like a basic outline of her hair here. I'm gonna go ahead, merge those verts, merge center, select the other ones, G, merge those. And then I want to go ahead and actually extrude another boundary, but I think it would be easier to do that in sort of segments so that we don't do all of the extrusions at once. So I'm going to go ahead and start by extruding back. So I'm going to select the two top faces and take a look at the side view here. I guess these are not 100% perfectly aligned, but that's okay. We can live with it. And actually, I can kind of be mindful of like where I already made extrusions, so I can kind of see where those are going. So I can do that around the back, so I have an idea of roughly where it is in the back. And then what I can do is I can take a look at this. I got to make sure I'm adding the correct material to this, so I'm going to assign existing material character base so I can see through it. So I can select these verts here. I can kind of nudge those as well. Maybe we'll add in a little bit more here. Maybe we can make another insert edge loop. Another insert edge loop there. Kind of shift these around a bit. I'll just be mindful that that's a little bit different. And then what I'm going to do here is I know that I need to extrude basically all the kind of top sections of her hair going down towards this the side so that it can kind of swoop that direction. So I'm going to go ahead, grab this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, and I think actually maybe that would, I'll just grab one more. And then I can extrude those out, scale them down, and I can actually, probably in this case, actually merge these or collapse them. So I can go to Edit Mesh, Merge to Center, or whatever the case might be. And I can position that roughly where the corner of her bangs are. And then I can start basically adding in divisions here really quick to just make the additional parts, and then we can try to quickly swoop these around, so and reposition them so that they get more of an accurate representation of the shape. Because obviously we can see that like right here, the kind of the swoosh that we did going this way is actually needs to be moved. So I can grab this, maybe we can actually rotate it a little bit. And we can start shifting some of that complexity. And then I want to start adding the kind of volume to the main part of her hair. And obviously, because these all taper to a point, I actually have to do the manually completed edge loop. So if I go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, I have to turn off autocomplete, and then that way if I select all of the edges here, I can say hit that, and it will create those edges automatically. But I have to actually drag a selection first. So I can then hit the G key. Maybe we can do something like that. Then I can hit enter to confirm. So yeah, let me actually like work with those first before I start making any other details. Just because we can get a lot of this just with that. So if this is coming around here, let's see. So we've got general impression. I'm not sure if maybe it was a good idea to taper this all down to 1 point, but oh well. Okay, so I'm going to select all these edges again, grab this selection, go to Insert Edge Loop, add a division there, and then by the way, you can then turn autocomplete back on, and you can make edge loops anywhere that are above where it's the explicit point that you have. So, all right. So, because then generally my goal here is I just want to make this kind of start conforming to the general shape, and then I can kind of see, you know, in my side view, like roughly like some loose information about where I want this to go, because I want this to kind of be wrapping around her head a little bit, but not, you know, fully. So we can obviously take these, position them, and then we can also start adding in more edge loops to create a softer overall shape. And if we wanted to, we could also switch to the say like the relax tool. So if I go to the modeling toolkit, I can go to quad draw and select relax, and then I can easily start nudging these hair details down a little bit more, so that they're not as wild looking. But then okay, so we got that. We have a decent idea of where that is placed. I'm going to go ahead and extrude this edge and this edge to create the general impression of the hair that's kind of swooping down by her side, by the side of her head. I can also take some of this hair and start kind of shifting that away from here as well, so that I can, let's see, maybe I'll select faces and quickly just drag some of those over. And so the idea is that I'm gradually just sort of like getting some generalized idea of where these pieces are supposed to go. So I'm going to take this over here. I'll probably collapse those, or I guess didn't want to do that, so I can select merge to center. And then I can add more edge loops here, and it's nice because actually the insert with edge flow is actually doing a lot of work for me. Keep it smooth and keeping the transitions fairly nice. Okay. And then I think actually it looks like, based on what we're seeing here, it looks like this this probably needs to be moved further back because we have to transition it into where her ear is. And so we're looking at making some small tweaks here. So this is going to be kind of like a hair helmet, I guess you could say, in that it's not going to be a complete piece. It's going to be basically a hair unit that we place on her head. It's not going to have all the kind of hair planes or effects that we might have if we were doing something more elaborate in another context. So, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with us doing it that way in this case. So, let's just see. Okay, so we got at the top of her head here. I want to make this a little bit more circular, less of like a square shape. Okay. And then probably what we're going to want to do, so we get an idea of where everything is and how it kind of connects together, is first off, we could easily go and we could start bridging. So I could select like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can edit mesh, bridge, just so we have those there. I know I'm going to probably want to add another division there, so I can go ahead and insert another edge loop, and then we can do another set of bridges. Actually, let's go ahead and bridge all the way down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll bridge those pieces. It looks like we need, similarly, I'm going to need to have another edge added in here. So I'm going to go to insert edge loop right there. And then we'll see if I can go all the way down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we'll edit mesh, bridge. And again, these are, kind of the broad strokes right now. But so what I know I'm going to eventually be doing here is I'm actually going to kind of want this to merge up into the center. So I'm going to kind of plan for that. Let's actually go ahead and take this set of 4 faces on the top here. I'm going to go ahead and select collapse, so that those collapse to the center. Actually, it didn't looks like it didn't go quite to the center. So I'm going to move that up to position there. Also going to probably merge this one into that one. And I might make an additional cut here, so I might go from here to here, just so that we have a more of like a kind of a radial pattern coming out from the top. Then we can go ahead and we can want to make sure all of our verts are merged. So I'm going to go ahead and select merge. Okay, that's probably fine. Then let's see. I'm gonna quickly do an append. Well, actually, let's do that afterward. So I'm gonna quickly go through, add some divisions here, so that I can get this shape more the way that I'm looking to see it. Let's add a couple of divisions around each of these. I think that I probably need to adjust the position of these verts a little bit so that they soften out that shape there. And then what I can do is I can grab all of these edges, I can extrude them, I can merge to center, I can do the same thing here, grab this set of edges, extrude, edit mesh, merge to center. And then I'm just going to quickly go through mesh tools, target weld. I'm going to target weld that one here, target weld this one there. And then that way, if I make additional edits here, I can select the edges going around this direction. Can select my insert edge loop, turn off autocomplete for a second, make an edge going around the middle, then I can turn autocomplete back on, and then I can have a little more control over how soft the transition is between different parts of the hair. And okay. All right, so we got a little bit. It's a little muddy over there, but we'll go ahead and tweak it. So let's go ahead and actually let's re-enable her head. So I'm going to go to Windows, Outliner. I'm going to turn on the head real quick so I can see where her hair is relative to these details. And then I can start more easily actually shaping this around her head, but then I can also go about making sure that that we just essentially don't see anything that we don't want to see. So I'm gonna add a few edges there, add maybe another edge there, and try to position this. And go to add, insert, edge loop, let's see, do a little bit there. Something around the middle there. And we don't have to go too crazy with this, but I do want to have a general idea, of like where we're going to put things. And I think depending on how her hair looks when it's done, I may actually just add some general divisions. So let's go ahead. So I'm going to bridge that real quick. Select these two faces, hit Control, or hit the G key, bridge that as well. Select this one, bridge that. Let's see, and then we've got quite a few edges that we could possibly add just to make sure that everything is connecting to everything else. So we could say maybe we connect these here. We know let's see, and this is something that just like the more experience you have with it, the more comfortable you will become with saying like, okay, I can see that I've got like 1, 2, 3, but I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 faces here, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 faces here. So I might just basically go here, 1, 2, 3, 4. 6, 7, okay. And so then that gives me enough to generally work with to be able to bridge the gaps here. And I think I'm actually probably going to end up merging a couple of these. So, all right, so then I can go ahead and select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you pick the wrong one, undo. 11, 12, let's see. Is that the right amount? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 12. Okay. Then I can go ahead and bridge those details here. We know there's a little corner here. This one I might be able to do fill hole on. Yeah, okay, fill hole works in that case. So we've got like our general idea of the underside of our hair is there. I can also maybe fill hole on this one. So if I hit the G key, I can fill hole there. Select this edge. That's what's cool about fill hole, is you can just automatically like fill a section without really having to do a whole lot of work for it. And so so we're trying to go through here and make sure that these details are all represented. Let's see. And she's got kind of large hair, so we got to make sure that we represent that fairly. It looks like in this case the hair is actually slightly clipping through the head, which is fine. We just want to make sure it's actually doing what it needs to do. So let's go ahead and actually start making some extrusions, because I think that those are going to be necessary. So I'm going to click on this edge, shift double click, and I'm going to extrude a section of the hair back in that fashion. Then I'm going to click on this edge, shift double click, and I'm going to extrude this part of the hair back as well. Again, the idea is not necessarily that you have to we have to fully close this hair. It's more that we generally have to make sure that these pieces all cover the parts of her head where you would possibly see gaps. So let me see if we can, because we don't want to be able to see where is not her hair through her head and see like blank spots or anything like that. So okay, I think here I might actually I might target weld this vert to this vert. We'll grab this vert here, probably snap it into there. And so like, just because I think that these are going a little bit far back, relatively speaking, I'm gonna pull these a bit forward. But then we also still need to add the additional bridging of the hair from basically kind of circling around. So what I'm gonna do there is actually, in this case, I think I might be able to get away with kind of selecting this edge, shift double clicking that edge, and then I can basically like extrude this in with the idea that I can kind of reposition it later or right now. And right now I'm actually just going to try to kind of position the verts and then I'll merge afterward, so that shouldn't be too hard. I just want to make sure that these are actually kind of closing the parts of her hair that are necessary. Parts of her head, rather. I mean, we can always add in more transitional elements as well. So let me go ahead and at some point I'm going to have to turn off the transparency, because I'm starting to have a little bit of a hard time discerning exactly where these details are relative to each other. Okay. So yeah, let's take a second to turn off transparency on this. If we don't have the hypershade, I could also kind of cheat and just go to Edit, delete all by type history, go to my attribute editor, change my transparency down for a sec, and then I just need to look at where I still have to basically bridge problem areas. And in this case, I'm not really trying to do it all. I'm trying to get like a general idea of what's going on here. Okay, so I think I might be able to add in a couple of divisions here using insert edge loop. So if I go to, like, say, insert edge loop, insert edge loop, insert edge loop, then what I'm looking at is actually somewhat helpful that way. So I can go ahead and add another edge loop over here, just so that it creates a little bit more of a correct contour. I want to make sure these verts are set up. I'm going to probably go ahead and select all of these, merge them real quick. Edit mesh merge options. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to quickly switch to the modeling toolkit, switch to the quad draw, and I'm going to start trying to, like, gently soften some of this here so it isn't, like, too intense or too extreme. I do want to actually take, I'm going to take a couple of these verts here, and I'm actually going to turn on soft selection, and I'm going to nudge this, adjusting a bit how soft my selection is, because I think in this case I actually think it'd probably be a good idea to actually just straight up merge some of this in so that it doesn't have all of the separation. I'll turn off soft selection here for a sec. Let's see. Okay, and so then I can take some of this and I can actually nudge these faces closer together. Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not basically cutting off part of the ear if I don't have to. So these two faces can go, these two faces can go, these two faces can go. And basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bridge that, bridge that, bridge that, take that, fill a hole, go to insert edge loop, quickly add a small division there so that I can have a little more control. And then I can nudge these edges a little further to get kind of a correct look here for what we want. Yeah, and I actually just gotta make sure I'm being a little bit careful here. I'm not getting anything too crazy on the inside. So yeah, looks like actually I'm gonna turn on X-ray for a second because I think there's a couple of edges here that I don't need. Okay, I got some faces on the inside that I forgot to get rid of. And this would probably look a little better if I grab this vert and this vert, slide those down a little bit so that I'm not creating such a such a harsh transition. And okay, so let's see. All right, here we are. So at this point, I mostly have this stuff cleaned out. So let's see. I think I'm going to merge that vert down. So I'm going to go to target weld, merge that vert down to here, so that we can then, if I use the quad draw, I can relax this a little bit. And then basically what I got to do is I got to just basically merge extrude these pieces up and make sure that I'm following the general contour of the hair, while accepting that I also need to make sure that I can still kind of see the ear a little bit, because I don't want that to be too obscured. So I can use a little bit of soft selection here to try to gently push this back. But okay, so then turn off my soft selection. I'm going to select edge, edge, edge. Turn on my X-ray for a second. Yeah, I think honestly I only worry about those edges, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off my X-ray. I'm going to extrude those up. Extrude that up. Extrude that up. And extrude that up one more time. And then basically what comes now is just basically going through and making sure that I've got all these verts merged. So let's make sure I've got those two. Merge to center. Merge to center. Merge to center. Merge to center, and then I also know that these are slightly further apart, but I can merge those to center as well. And yeah, so okay, I think we could get even crazier about this if we wanted to. I think actually this to me this came out pretty nicely. If I'm being honest, I think it I like it. I might want to add in a couple of additional divisions. Now, there's one thing I'm not sure that I'm gonna do this, but so if I go ahead and save what I'm doing real quick. If I go to mesh smooth, I could add in one layer of smoothing to the hair, and I think ultimately I don't like that, because it makes it adds a bunch of polys, right? But then it also means that I have a little bit less control over the specific shape. So I think in this case, I'm actually just going to probably add a couple of divisions in a few spots with, and actually I'm going to do multiple edge loops here. I'm going to select multiple edge loops, but only pick one. I'm going to have that in, or no, wait, actually I can't do that. Insert with edge flow, so I can just go here, I can add a couple of divisions in a few places that I think I might benefit from them. So that we can get a little more quality in the shape. So I'm getting emails from Grubhub. Okay, and then I can just go through and make my I can do some of my quad draw relax just to make sure that I have the right kind of shape here. I think there's a couple of ends that I need to improve because it looks like there's a few spots that may need some tweaking. Yeah, like that spot right there. So I'm gonna then actually, since we're here in the modeling toolkit, I can go to the multi-cut tool. I'm gonna quickly cut there to finish that piece. I'm gonna cut here and here, cut here and here, so that I can just merge those things down so they, oh, looks like I need to do the same thing on a couple more. So that then when I use the relax, it should soften those out, except for anywhere that I missed. So I'm just going to cut those so that I have the correct transitions for all of those. And I think I'm going to actually do that a little bit here, but I also want to add one more insert edge loop. Wrap that up. That look a little more polished. And do the same over here. Well, wait, actually let me go back, do that again so that's a little more centered. And I think that's actually okay. I know it made like kind of a little bit of like a weird quad segment here, but it's nothing too bad. Okay, so then I think actually pretty happy with her hair. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the hair and the head. I'm going to combine those all together, and then basically what we're wrapped up with the head here in this case for this particular model, and I'm just going to go through and make the character body next. And it may actually be that the body is the easiest part of what we're doing here, so prepare for that being potentially a little bit easier. But yeah, so not too bad for a character head in a couple hours. So let's go ahead and wrap this up, and then I'll see you guys in the next video.